In the mid-2000s, Kristin Davis gained notoriety as the Manhattan Madam for running a high-end escort service in New York City. Her business reportedly catered to high-profile individuals such as Governor Eliot Spitzer, David Beckham, and Alex Rodriguez. These associations brought significant media attention and thrust her into the public spotlight. In 2008, Kristin was arrested for her involvement in the escort service, and she served 4 months in solitary confinement in Rikers Island. Kristin ran for governor of New York State in 2010. In 2013, during her campaign as a Libertarian candidate for New York City Comptroller, Kristin was arrested again for distributing prescription pills. This arrest occurred 2 weeks after Eliot Spitzer entered the same exact race, leading her to believe that it was politically motivated. Fast forward to today, and Kristin Davis is on the comeback. She is a political consultant and has worked with the likes of Roger Stone, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, General Michael Flynn, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And I am happy to announce that today on the program, she doesn't do many of these interviews, boys and girls, is the Manhattan Madam, Kristin Davis. Kristin, welcome to the show. There she is, Kristin Davis. How are you today?
I am excellent. Thanks for having me on.
You know, just reading that short kind of synopsis, that short bio of everything you've been through, just those couple sentences, Kristin Davis, it gives me chills. Like, you have been through the damn ringer. You have seen it all, from inside of prison cells to running for office to working with the biggest names in American politics. The highs and lows, I mean, how the hell are you doing today?
I'm great. I think anything outside of a prison cell is a good time, personally, but it probably makes me more skilled at representing all of these people in our current political climate.
You know, Kristin, I know you don't do a ton of interviews, you don't do a ton of media, you do some, but I was curious, as I read about you and all the news articles and look back at everything that's happened, have you been approached to do one of these like Netflix docuseries or some sort of a movie, a Hollywood blockbuster on your life? Because really, when you look at your life, there's not many people that can say that you've really seen it all from a political standpoint and from a legal standpoint.
Well, and I started in hedge funds, right? I was a trading assistant, which is where I learned about the business because all the finance bros were using services. And then I became vice president of a $5 billion fund. And then I decided to start an agency, and then I was arrested. So I have a really unique background. I have filmed, I'm not allowed to say the network, but I have filmed an episode for a major network, a true crime episode on my life, because that seems to be the trend now. Everybody's looking at the Menendez brothers and all these things. And by those standards, I'm a very small fish, but it is interesting.
So just to give our audience today some perspective, if you could, and this might be difficult, you know, from an emotional standpoint to bring back difficult things in your life, but could you walk us through, take us back to the day that you were in your place with your boyfriend and the SWAT team came knocking on your door and everything around that? Could you share that story with us?
Sure. The backstory is I had already lawyered up. Governor Spitzer was caught with a girl who used to work for me and another agency, and I knew it was coming. So I had closed everything down. I was waiting for them to come through the door, hoping this one attorney who has now basically been disbarred for scamming people, I was hoping he would negotiate turning myself in. So I was sitting in my apartment in my gym clothes, stressed out, sort of terrified about what might happen. And there was a knock on the door. My boyfriend looked out the peephole and he said, "Kristin, the SWAT team is here. What do you want to do?" My response was, "Well, I'm 14 floors up in a high rise in Manhattan. What am I going to do? Open the door." And he opened the door. In came, 40, 50 armed officers with shields. They had battering ram. They had their guns drawn. And I'm sitting there in my gym clothes. They said, "Who's Kristin Davis?" I said, "Well, clearly it's me. There's two of us here. It's me." And they, kicked him out and arrested me, shackles around the waist, around the legs. And then I went outside and there were 2 helicopters overhead. They had closed down 4 blocks in the middle of Midtown Manhattan in the middle of the day. And there were about 100 police cars, 100 police cars there. I was clearly, that was maybe the victim of the first ever witch hunt.
So fast forward to, you worked in your various businesses behind the scenes, right? And now this thing happens with the escort service, and you're now the Manhattan Madam, and you're on the cover of the New York Post, and you're really across the world in international media. And now you go from somebody that, does your business behind the scenes to somebody that's in the spotlight and is now a celebrity. How did you deal with that? Like when you got out of prison, that must have been really heady to step out into the wild and say, oh shit, everyone knows who I am, and it's not necessarily for the best reasons.
Right. I did it to myself. I take full responsibility for what I did, but it was definitely difficult. I tried to embrace it a bit. I ended up meeting Roger Stone on a radio show, a Sirius XM radio show. And then he started lobbying me to run for office. And it was not anything that I would have ever thought of for myself, which I told him. It took him about 6 months, 10 months to convince me.
So you ran for office in 2010, New York governor, and you were a middle finger vote, right? You were running as a protest vote. Was it that everything that you went through with Spitzer and everything you went through with law and the Justice Department, were you just like, you know what, we need somebody running that can really just throw a monkey wrench in this whole mess?
Well, I ran as a protest candidate because Spitzer got to just resign and go back to his Fifth Avenue apartment, and my life was destroyed and I had to sign over all my money. So it was a protest candidate, but it was also spurred by the fact that in the middle of kind of my book tour and after I had met Roger, Jalissa Brisman was killed by the Craigslist killer. And she was a girl that it made a bunch of news. She was a girl that used to work for me. And I found this out because Geraldo called me and said, hey, we want to interview you. We know you used to use Craigslist to place ads for your body rub location. Would you come on the show? Google, someone's been killed. And I Googled it and I was devastated. This man was caught with trophies of dozens of victims, and none of these girls reported him to the police. And I came back to Roger and I said, how do I lobby for some sort of decriminalization so they can call the police instead of being victimized? He said, run for office.
So Roger Stone really was, during some of your most trying times, a mentor to you. I mean, he stepped up and gave you some support and gave you some direction in your life.
He did. And I think, it went both ways. People know the Roger Stone now, but the Roger Stone 15 years ago couldn't get on TV. He had his own scandal. Nobody was talking to him. So we were kind of like two black sheep that needed each other.
Kristin Davis, I look at what's happening in the news right now with P. Diddy and all of those allegations out there. And then we look at, obviously, Jeffrey Epstein and the Epstein list and all of those allegations. And is he on the list? Is she on the list? Yes or no? The American public wants to see the list. The American public wants to know who is involved in all of this P. Diddy scandal. So when everything went down with you, we had some social media, but it wasn't like it is today. Were you scared because, your name was in the hat with some very powerful, some of the most powerful people in our country? Were you scared at that point? Like, these people could call in favors and my life might be in jeopardy.
I wasn't scared until I got out and checked my email, and there were a bunch of death threats. So then I became scared. But my list was 10,000 names. I had all their credit card receipts, their phone calls, that my system recorded their phone calls. And, and they actually didn't go after any of these men. The prosecutors didn't care. And I often, I'd like to think, hey, listen, I'll release my list, release the Epstein list. Let's both come out there and show the people what everybody's doing.
I wish we could see that. Kristin Davis, speaking of Kristin Davis right now. So I wanted to ask you about some of your clients, some of the people you've worked with politically. So we talked about Roger Stone, General Michael Flynn, Rudy Giuliani, and also RFK Jr. All of these men have one thing in common, and that is they have been smeared in the media, right, for one reason or another. Crisis management. I don't think there's anybody in the country that's better to ask this question to. When things go down and you wake up and you mentioned checking your email and you see that phone and you're like, holy hell, the weight of the world, the international press is now on my doorstep. What do you do in the moments after, when you advise your clients, in the moments after a terrible story breaks?
Depends on the situation. A lot of times for terrible stories, we have advance warning, right? I got outed for working to support Bobby for the last 18 years. I did so very quietly. I didn't do any press. Nobody knew. But I got outed because I responded to a reporter who was going to go forward with a really awful story that was untrue. And I fought this reporter for 3 days, and they didn't go to print, but in the interim, they Googled me. And so a lot of times, if you're fighting with reporters, you have an idea of what's going to go on, right? You know what they're asking you to confirm or not confirm, and you're fighting back. Sometimes they go forward, even if it's not true. And so how do you fight back against that? Sometimes you have to release something bigger, right? You know, sometimes we have gifts. I think in Bobby's case, one of his big gifts was the goat versus dog eating, right? Everybody ran forward with this goat eating, excuse me, whatever it was, dog. And it was really a goat, and it was all kind of above board, and it was something they did on a retreat. But it was kind of a gift because there were other things lying in that story that got overlooked, right? So I think that a lot of times it's like, well, what can we put emphasis on? How do we deal with that? If it's really bad, did you do something wrong? You know, throw yourself at the mercy of the, court of public opinion and try to, be humble.
And, a lot of these people in politics and in the celebrity world, these stories break and it's like, you just know they're going down and it's not going to be good. And they're going to have to hire somebody like you, Kristin, and it's going to be a PR mess. They're going to lose money. They're going to lose followers. They could very well lose their career. But there's one man I'm thinking about right now, and you're probably thinking about the same man, and he's Teflon Don. I mean, the damn guy got shot and he's still standing. Everything that seems to come his way, these scandals, grab him by the pee, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there's like two, three more right now breaking in my Twitter feed. The guy just doesn't seem to get hit. It just doesn't seem like his supporters are going to leave him. It just doesn't seem like anything can touch him. What do you attribute Donald Trump's Teflonness, for lack of a better term, to? Is it just because he's been through the ringer so much and people he just kind of brushed it off his shoulder? What is it?
That's a great question. I think people forget, right? In 2017 and 2018, when it was impeachment, 2 impeachments, and all these things were happening, I got, subpoenaed to testify for the Mueller investigation, right? And he was the underdog then, the unliked underdog then, right? I was working for Roger, walking through the streets of Manhattan. People would call us traitor. I would be pushing my son, who was 2 years old, with Roger, because he's the godfather, and people would spit at him. So there was a time period where everyone hated Trump, right? The supporters were small but loyal, and he went through it, and he went through it with, integrity. He went through it showing a brave face. He was, mostly humble about all of it, and he took it. And as the cycle continued, he was exonerated, right? Everything always comes out in the wash. And you fast forward to now we've seen so much victimization of him that to us, it's like, okay, you're full of, garbage. You're not telling the truth now because we've been here this whole time. We've watched it. None of that was true. Everybody thought there was Russian collusion. They for sure thought that, and there wasn't. And so over time, he's managed to, the victim, he is the victim. They victimized him, demonized him, and that's not working for them. And they're probably shocked that it's not working.
Well, even the lawsuits, if I was a Democrat and I was a strategist on their side, I would say just don't release any of these stories. Don't do anything because it actually ends up somehow helping him. So Kristin Davis, I was speaking to somebody about a month ago, and this is a person that is a very well-known person that our whole audience knows, very powerful man, extremely rich, an A-lister, put it that way, and somebody that I look up to and somebody that I think is very intelligent. And I said to this man, I said, sir, you should run for office. You should run for governor. You should run for president of the United States in the next cycle. And you know what he told me, Kristin? He said, look at all of these politicians. They find the skeletons in the closet, even if there's not many skeletons there. We all have something in our past, some more public like you, some more private like others. Nobody is free from skeletons in the closet. And what he told me was, I don't want to end up like all of these other guys and gals and put my family through it. And God forbid, we go back to your client, Roger Stone, God forbid, maybe someday get thrown in prison. What do you say to people out there that are prominent? What do you say to people out there that are superstars, rock stars, but they're really apprehensive about running for office because they're worried about ending up in prison? That's what America is these days.
I say the same exact thing. What do you have in your closet that I need to know about now, that I need to get in front of? It's going to come out. I've done a lot of races, gubernatorial races, 4 presidential races at this point, did Gary Johnson in 2012. It's the same thing across the board. It's just worse now because we have social media and everybody can amplify a message within, minutes. So I think that's really it. Our system has been also weaponized against people who want to run for office, which is evident with Bobby. He couldn't even get on the ballot in certain states. It's just like, the system is set up for 2 parties, and how do you work within those confines?
Well, RFK Jr., and I've said this on the program a lot, he's one of the most impressive men, one of the most impressive Americans I've ever met in my life. I mean, when I got a chance to hear him speak, when I got a chance to talk to him, I was so impressed. And then you go back and you open up your phone and you look at all the news stories and it's like, oh no, they're painting him to be some kind of a loon. But he's not a loon. I think the reason they paid him to be a loon is because they're scared of him and they know that his message was landing. And fast forward, now it's, MAHA, right? Make America Healthy Again. And we hope that Mr. Kennedy will make America healthy again. So Kristin Davis, I want to talk to you about the comeback. We kind of highlighted a lot of the difficulties in your life, but now you're doing so much good. I follow you on Instagram. I follow you on social media. We chat privately from time to time. What do you attribute your success today to, 2024? I mean, you're out there and you're a legitimate political consultant, a businesswoman, one of the most high-powered, high-profile people working behind the scenes in politics. Could you have imagined when you were sitting in Rikers Island, you'd fast forward to 2024, and here you are?
No, I would have never imagined it because I didn't know anything about politics before Roger, and I didn't really care. I think, it's about resilience and fortitude, and how do you recover from a setback? What do you learn from it? And I was able to do both of those things. With a little help. I had some friends who gave me positions and they said, you're going to sink or swim. And I did really good at those things and I learned and I kept progressing.
Would you say that you were humbled by this whole experience, by this whole roller coaster you've been on? Has it been humbling for you?
I've had so many humbling moments in my life, and it actually makes me very good at what I do. And I think that's part of what's helped me rebuild, is that I'm very good at being number 2. I know how to put someone first. I don't care about the limelight. Like you said, I don't do that many interviews. I can 100% put another person's initiatives first and use everything to push them forward. And I've done that with all these great men that I feel like I've had such, an amazing career and all these blessings to have been able to just be around them and hear how they do business and how they strategize things. I mean, I'm so blessed for that.
Well, there's nothing America loves more, Kristin Davis, than a comeback. And you for sure, you are the ultimate comeback story. And like I said, when I read your bio, when I think about your life, it gives me chills because you know what? We've all been through a lot of shit in our life. It's just yours was very extremely public. And here you are. And I just, I know you don't do a lot of these long form interviews and stuff. So I really appreciate you doing this outside of the mainstream media. And I appreciate you being so open and honest today. So what is it? We running for office in the future? What's the future for Kristin Davis?
I don't know yet. Politics is so corrupt. I've been in it now for 16 years. And, the difference between it and my former agency is that at least, we had honest transactions. In politics, you never know what someone's price is, and they are literally all for sale. And it's deeply draining. I think, maybe talking about true crime is actually, well, that's actually also talking about politics. So I don't know, but,
Well, we'll look for that episode. We don't know what network. We're not going to get that today. We're not going to get that exclusive, but we did get an exclusive interview with Kristin Davis. And Kristin, I want to mention this while we're still on the air here real quick. A gentleman that you linked me up with years ago, Judge Andrew Napolitano. He is doing a show called Judging Freedom on YouTube, and he does like 3-4 interviews. The guy's so consistent, like every day, and he's interviewing like ex-spies, ex-CIA, ex-generals and military people. And if you want a perspective on the Russia-Ukraine war and what's happening with Israel, Gaza, Lebanon, and Iran over there, the judge has really got some people on his show that will open your eyes. Whether you agree or disagree with the people he interviews, I think it's the most enlightening, eye-opening show on all of YouTube. It's called Judging Freedom with somebody I know you used to work with. So just a shout out to Judge Andrew Napolitano.
I still work with him. I love the judge. We have been close for 15 years. He's one of the first people outside of Roger to believe in me and to give me a chance. He is
well, I'd love to have him on this show,
heart.
but he doesn't do, I don't think, you would know, you're the lady to talk to. I don't think he's doing any media because all he does is his own show constantly, and he's getting hundreds and hundreds, if not millions of views on that thing. Again, it's the best damn, I'm a political junkie, and I'm an international diplomacy nerd, so he is my go-to. I'm going to send this clip to the judge. I want him on the show. He doesn't do much media, and I got to tell you one other thing. If President Trump gets elected, you know, I don't know what's going to happen with the Supreme Court. You never know. But I would consider Judge Andrew Napolitano for a cabinet position. Just keep thinking about that man, because he is one of the most brilliant minds out there in law, in order, and in politics, and now somehow in international policy.
And he is 100% dedicated to protecting our constitutional rights, which is what we should be looking for in a judge.
He is, as are you, and we all love this country. There's Kristin Davis. My name is Billy Harfosh, broadcasting from beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona, Star Worldwide Network Studios. Like, subscribe, comment. What'd you think of that interview? We'll be back with more explosive interviews.